Uh, I don't know if many people are aware of this, but back in 2002, there was a little bit of tampering that went on for the off the original album. And what I mean by the tampering is, from what I understood, and I actually sourced this um, online. And what happened was, from what my understanding is, Sharon Osbourne, they had some royalty disputes. I think this has been going on for many years with Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley, the original studio musicians. They recorded on those albums, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of Madman, and um, something that they just didn't want to pay them anymore. So, from my understanding, is that Sharon Osbourne did the unthinkable, the big sacrilegious thing of wiping out bass tracks and drum tracks back from the 1982 magical recording of all four of those guys in the studio, and decided that they were going to have Robert Trujillo, and I think his name is Mike Borden, who is the drummer from Faith No More, and re-record the tracks and put on their 2002 version of Blizzard of Oz and Diary of Madman. And also, to add insult to injury, I don't even think they even put a sticker on the CD to let people know that it wasn't the original album. Now, for everybody out there, what do you think about this? I could tell you what I think about this. I never thought that it was possible. I thought once an album was done, it's etched in stone. That's it. Doesn't matter if you don't get along with the band members anymore. Doesn't matter if you break up. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. Once you record that album is distributed and it's released, it's over. Everybody, I mean, doesn't everybody know that? That the album is done. You're on it. You're immortal on that album. Apparently not. Sharon Osbourne did it again. And I was reading this article here, and I want to just go through a little bit of it. It says, and I'm going to read it. This is off of philnum.com. And you can find this out in many other sources. But this one in particular says Daisy and Kurtzlake were unexpectedly fired by Sharon Osbourne after the recording of Diary of the Madman. Bassist Rudy Sarzo and drummer Tommy Aldridge are credited in the liner notes and pictured in the inner sleeve, but it was Daisley and Kurtzlake who performed all bass and drum parts in the original release. Okay, gets worse. In 1986, Daisley and Kerslake successfully sued the Osbournes for unpaid royalties, eventually winning songwriting credits on both Blizzard and Diary of Madman. Subsequently, a 2002 reissue of the albums were made with Daisley and Kerslake original bass and drum parts removed and re-recorded. Unbelievable. The new parts were recorded by Osbourne's then drummer Mike Borden of Faith No More. Everybody knows Mike Borden of Faith No More. And bassist Robert Trujillo, Suicidal Tendencies in Metallica. Here's what Sharon said, and this is a quote. Sharon said that it was Ozzy, actually, not she, who was responsible for the decision to re-record the parts. And here stating, quote, because of Daisley and Kerslake's abuse and unjust behavior, Ozzy wanted to remove them from these recordings. We turned a negative into a positive by adding a fresh sound for the original albums. Can you believe that? Unquote. Sorry, I mean, I unquote, and then I said, can you believe that? To me, even by reading this quote, you can tell, I don't think this is correct. I mean, here she says, we can turn a negative into a positive by adding a fresh sound to the original recordings. Yeah, let's go ahead and repaint the Mona Lisa. We'll go ahead and get a modern painter here, and he can redo the thing, give it a fresh look. You know what I mean? Like that would be the equivalence to this artwork. I mean, you just don't do that. I mean, I mean, if you're a musician, you should be highly against something like this. This is sacrilegious. So you don't just take out people whenever you want and then re-record it. And then, oh my gosh. So that was a quote. And then it says here, Ozzy contradicted his wife's claim in his 2009 autobiography, stating that the decision to re-record the original bass and drums parts were strictly Sharon's decision. Now, are you going to believe Ozzy or Sharon? he said that his wife just snapped, okay, that power trip, and had it done without his knowledge. I didn't quote, I didn't have anything to do with that decision, unquote. Ozzy also stated that quote, a sticker was put on the covers telling everyone about it, unquote, though in fact the sticker was not initially placed on the reissue and was only placed on the covers in a later date due to fan outcry over the altered recordings. They had to get feedback, and they did it. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's exactly what I was just looking at right now. That exact quote you just said. I mean,
I'm almost done. It's almost done, and then we can talk about this because this is really unbelievable. In 2011, a deluxe 30th anniversary edition was released with all original parts restored. Ozzy said he told Sharon, quote, "You know what? Whatever the circumstances were, I want the original thing back," unquote. Can you imagine the outcry if the Osbournes had decided to remove Randy Rhoads' guitar parts? Just think about that. I mean, to me, this is just unbelievable. I will vigorously just defend my stance on how much I find this just to be disgusting, right? As a music fan, and all music fans should be concerned about this, because if they can do this, and if you're in a band, you would be worried that they can take you out at any time, right? They don't want to pay you or any other reason. Although I will say this, obviously once your record is distributed worldwide, everybody's got those recordings, right? I mean, so yeah, you have that, but still, they're going to record other band. I mean, this is just mind-boggling to me, right? So yeah, I mean, I thought I'd bring it up to fans' attentions that don't know about this or not familiar with this, because you're not going to hear much about this on the regular news, and they're not going to bring this up. You're going to have to dig a little deeper to find this out. Because what ended up happening back in about that time, I bought the album, right? And
the original album.
I bought the album at Tower thinking that it was going to be the original album. And so I came home, I listened to it, and I've been listening to this album since I was 5, in the 80s. I mean, I've heard for 30 years almost. At that time, I've been listening to this album, 20-something. It sounded different. I could tell that the bass and drums were off.
Okay, so you bought the 2002 re-release.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. I bought that, and I could completely tell that it was off. Something, and then what was completely the thing that just the smoking gun was that on Crazy Train, that little demon thing that sounds at the end when he's like laughing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? They messed that up. They did some other weird effect. It wasn't the same as that on that album to say that they were out. What they had done. I don't even care if they even give a warning. You don't do that. You know what I mean? And let me just say this too, Robert Trio. I got a bone to pick with you, buddy. You should have not have took that job. Sharon Osbourne, I understand all that, but you know what? If you have a backbone to care anything about music, I would, you shouldn't have took it. You should have said, no, I will not destroy those albums. You know what I mean? Instead, they went along and they were good little soldiers, and they decided to just go ahead and bow down to Sharon Osbourne, because it was Sharon. I don't think it was Ozzy. I think it was Sharon who did this. And you could tell by that even that quote, you could tell, she doesn't even think it's bad to do that. It's good. It's positive, right? She just said it was positive in her own words. So yeah, they took it out. Unbelievable. And you can imagine how they felt, Lee and Bob, how they felt. I mean, you can go on YouTube and read about, listen to what they had to say about it. But yeah, everybody needs to know that if you make sure that when you're listening to the albums, that you're listening to the original 82, 81 album, the original releases with Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake. Make sure that you have those, and make sure that you don't have the 2002 re-release mutilation of these albums, because let me tell you, disgusting, horrible. I mean, I could give you examples that people might understand. Like, what if I were to take out Michael Jackson's backup vocals or something? You know what I mean? Let's go and put in somebody else in there. You just don't do that. You just don't do that. And so, yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up to you, Josh, because I just thought people should know about this, and make sure that check your albums, make sure that you have the right copy. And you can also, to get information, you can also go to discogs. I think it's .com or .org, discogs.com. And you can get so much information about albums, vinyl, CDs. It'll tell you all the versions of this album. It'll give you all this information so you can know, so you can educate yourself to make this proper decision for yourself to know which one you want. You know what I mean? Do you want to listen to the 2002 Diary of the Madman, or do you want to listen to the original Diary of the Madman, the one that was meant to be heard?